And then when a mom feels that and experiences that for herself, they want that for their child, and then they also can see what's possible for their child. Providing that to families so the parents could change, and when the parents change,
and it's not just about food choices.
It's one of the most powerful parent strategies. I love that approach because it takes away the shame.
Welcome to the Life on Purpose Over 40 podcast, where empowerment, elegance, and health take center stage. I'll be your guide on this thrilling journey to outshine your past self. This is a podcast all about transformation. We're plunging headfirst into exactly what health, wellness, style, relationships, and career look like as a woman over 40. You'll be hearing from all the most sought-after global trailblazers and experts. This isn't just about learning, it's about embracing your inner, fierce, fabulous self. Let's get started. Welcome everyone back to the podcast. I have Dr. Sheila Carroll with me today. I'm so excited to be speaking to Sheila because this is all about health for women, but also for our children. And most people listening have either got teenage children, or maybe they're going to be grandparents soon, or already are grandparents. Or maybe like me and Sheila, you've had babies later in life and have gotten young children who need to understand all of this as well. So it's going to be a great episode. I'm so excited to be speaking to Sheila today. So Sheila, thank you for coming here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Caroline. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. So let's get into it. A little bit about you. You're a board certified pediatrician, and you have been speaking about the importance of healthy eating for mums, understanding it because of their children. So how about you tell us a little bit about you and how you got into this, your background, and why it is that you find this such an important part of women's understanding for their children.
Sure. Yes, I am a board certified pediatrician, and I've been a practicing pediatrician for about 23 years. I recently just left, but I've been doing it for 23 years, and I'm also board certified in obesity medicine. And I got into kind of wanting to help parents focus on health and their family's health because, well, I have personal reasons for that. My own health journey as a kid and a teen, and an adult, I never really suffered from like a diagnosed medical problem, except for the diagnosis of being overweight. And so I was an overweight child from the time I was 9 or 10. And then up until about 5 years ago, when I kind of solved this problem for myself permanently through life coaching. It just makes me laugh that I figured, I needed the help of a life coach and not a doctor to solve this problem. But it just goes to show you, as adults, like our eating is very emotional, and it's not necessarily a medical reason. If us doctors, we give people a lot of advice: do this, eat this, don't eat that, exercise, get to sleep, and that's all great information for people. But if people can't do it for whatever reason, because of the way they're thinking and feeling, and the other things going on in their life, and they can't do, we call it the action line, if they can't take the actions we want them to take, they're never gonna be able to have the benefits of doing those things. So, I know how hard it is to be an overweight child, at least for me. And as a pediatrician, I'm seeing more and more and more families struggle with overweight, and hearing kids, so innocently, just want to be different, want their bodies to be different, and they don't know what to do. And it's so funny. Almost all the kids think they just need to exercise more. Oh, I need to join a gym. Like, this is what like a 7-year-old is saying.
Oh.
No, actually, so I was seeing this huge need for education and intense support and intense help to help the parents. And it's usually the moms, who are, at least, my experience has been the moms are doing a lot of the grocery shopping, but it doesn't always have to be the mom. So when I say mom, it can actually, easily transfer to the dad or to the male, if that's your family situation. But people were needing real help. And the same kind of help that I needed for my own personal transformation, that I received through a life coach. So I wanted to start providing that to families so the parents could change. And when the parents change, the kids will change, even without the kids having to do anything. Honestly, even without the kids having to really be involved. So I love that approach because it takes away the shame of talking, or not. Well, it takes away the shame of having a conversation with a child. Well, okay, well, now you weigh X amount, and you need to change this and this to get that number to change. Okay, that is so, in my opinion, really unhelpful for everybody and anybody. The parent, it's so uncomfortable for the parents, it's so uncomfortable for the doctors to talk about like that, and it's horrible for the kids. So what I was seeing in my practice was I really wanted to have a visit just with the parents. And of course the visit would have to be like long and multiple times in a row, which our current medical system here in the US is just not set up, and refuses to support that kind of preventative healthcare. So I left and started my own health coaching business for parents, with a soft spot just for the kids who are struggling with extra weight.
Yeah, I love that. I've experienced a few things in my life as well. I was in a situation probably the opposite to you. I was so skinny that my teachers used to pull, not just my teachers, other teachers in the school would pull me out of the classroom and ask me if my parents were too poor to feed me because
Whoa.
I was so skinny. And I would laugh and be like, no, we're not poor. And they used to offer me apple. I'll bring an apple to school every day for you. I'm like, I don't have an eating. If anything, I eat too much. Like, I would eat 3 of my father's dinner plates. I would eat 3 of those for dinner as a
Wow.
teenager. I
Wow.
would just eat and eat and eat. And my brother was the same. We just could not put on weight. And
This
yeah,
brings
not
up such
feeling that anymore. But,
this brings up
but
such a beautiful point, that everybody's body is so different.
no,
Everybody.
but I was going to make to prove how different it is. So that was me and my brother. But my sister, on the other hand, didn't have that same body. So while we are the same in so many ways, her through the journey of being from 8 to about 14, she did put on weight. And so did my brother. And my brother was older than her. And because I knew his body, and I knew once he got to 15, 16, he lost it because of his, like, we ate really healthy. We were a very healthy family. We didn't have junk food in the house. We didn't have soft drinks. Like, all of that stuff in our house was completely, and I remember being really upset that we never had what the other kids had. But we were just a very healthy home. So my brother putting on weight was nothing to do with bad eating. It was just how his body grew. And I think that's another thing that they put so much emphasis on, that child's fat.
Mm-hmm.
As an 8-year-old, not understanding maybe it's not actually the parents not feeding them properly. So my sister, on the other hand, had the problem where she did put on weight, but because in my mum's head, I was always so skinny. And my mum probably at the time, we're talking about the, this is 30 years ago, probably went about things the wrong way and said things to my sister that she shouldn't have said. And I remember me being, she was 10 years younger than me. And so I was like 18, 19 years old. And I had friends that had suffered with eating disorders. So I was very adamant to my mum saying, do not speak to her like that. And there was no knowledge back then about it. But I knew from what my friends at that age were going through, I was like, Mum, we cannot speak to her like this because that is not going to help her. That's only going to make things worse. And she did end up losing it. Like, it wasn't something that stayed with her. But I think that we as parents, my mum was trying to do the right thing. Yeah, my mum was just like, stop eating. My brother would sometimes buy her a Big Mac, I remember, once in a while. And my mum thought that was what was putting on the weight. That wasn't what was putting on the weight. It was her body at that stage. But I think that as mothers, so I've experienced it from my mum, but I've experienced also, now I'm a stepmom to teenage girls, and then I've got my daughter who's 3, and the importance of how we speak to our children about food. I think that we can play such a pivotal role in that. And that's why I wanted to get you on today, because I think we can't go through this blindly. We really can't.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And so it's really wonderful for parents, grandparents to realize that every child's biology is different, like we just said. And even if they're siblings, they handle food. Everybody's body handles food differently. And when we start to talk about the way parents and grandparents can talk about weight with their kids or body shape or size, well, first of all, I probably would just leave out talking about body shape or size, first of all. But I recommend to people to focus on health and not weight. And because if we're only focusing on the number on the scale, there's a lot of unhealthy ways to make that number go down. There's a lot of unhealthy ways to make that number go up if that's what you're trying to do. But if we're really taking a step back and what we're trying to help our kids do is become healthy eaters, if parents want to raise healthy eaters with a good relationship with food, then we need to kind of talk about health in general and not weight.
Yeah, that is so true. I really like that. I think that's something that I'm going to repeat that because I think that's really important to emphasize. It's not about the number on the scale and it's not about your body shape. It's about being healthy. I think Michelle Obama was really strong on this stance of eating healthy, and there's a lot of people that are trying to do that as well. It's all about what the child puts on their plate and understanding that that's actually the most important thing is that the food's healthy.
Yes. Yeah. And I think we parents have to really make that connection between what we're choosing to feed our children and their health. And I'll admit, for a long time, even through medical school, and certainly through my childhood and through medical school, and this is not something that's taught, is that food choices really matter to us, matter to our bodies at the cellular level. So it's not just calories coming in. All calories are not the same. And there are certain foods that are healthier to eat, that there are certain foods that work better with a human being's biology than foods that are created in a lab. Some of the foods that have been created in labs, these highly processed, ultra processed foods, they actually are harming our biology. And so there's a little bit of a movement here in the US, at least. We don't want to call foods good or bad, and I agree in the concept of that, because then sometimes when people eat, especially a child eats a quote bad food, it's a slippery slope to then, oh, I'm a bad person because I ate that bad food. Oh, I was bad. You'll even hear people talking like that. I was so bad last night. I ate 3 pieces of pizza and a whatever, So I think that's not a healthy way to talk about food. But I think as a doctor, as a mom, as a person seeing people of all ages suffer from food-induced problems, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease. I mean, the list goes on and on. High blood pressure, insulin resistance. There's so many medical problems that are directly tied to our food choices. So we have to figure out a way to be able to say, well, this is more healthy and this is less healthy. Doesn't mean you're a bad person if you choose to eat the less healthy. There's no moral judgment on the food that you're eating. But we have to understand our bodies. Evolutionarily, we're this very ancient species. We weren't designed to our body is doing the best it can. When we get past a Coca-Cola or a Big Mac, like you mentioned, or something that's newish in the past 100 years, our body is doing the best it can to handle that huge load of added sugars and these seed oils, these inflammatory seed oils, unhealthy fats, and it's doing the best it can, but it can't keep that up over a sustained period of time. And that's why we're seeing so much disease in our population, because the foods we're choosing to eat, the foods that are, unfortunately, they taste great, they're affordable, and they're easily accessible. They're frankly everywhere. So those foods, they are harming our cells. And so our body can't function very well with those, when we constantly are eating those.
But it's actually funny. I wanted to mention, I'm just going to write a note because there's a couple of things that I wanted to ask you. But I just wanted to make a mention of that because I think it's a really interesting situation. I live in the Netherlands now, and I lived in Australia. And when I moved to the Netherlands, well, I moved to Europe about 10 years ago. And when I moved to Europe, first I moved to Spain, and I looked around and I was like, there's so many less overweight people in Spain than there are in Australia. And Australia is now classed as the third fattest country in the world. I think it's like fighting with the UK. US, of course, is the first. And then, yeah, so Australia is not far behind the US. And moving to Europe and now in the Netherlands, I see what I saw in Australia were teenage girls walking around very overweight. And you don't see that here. You don't see it in the Netherlands. You don't see it in Spain like you do at all. It's nothing like it. It's amazing, the difference. And my stepchildren, I've got 4 stepkids, and they went to the US a couple of years ago, and they were in New York. And what they came back with, the information, was actually coming from 4 children that were between the ages of about 11 and 18. It was really interesting to hear them speaking about it. And I think that listening to what you're saying, how easily accessible bad food is, it's really scary. I think the fact that we talk about big pharma ruining the world, but all of these money hungry people trying to put in as many fast food chains, whether it's McDonald's or all these other fast food chains, we don't have that in Europe. We don't have that same problem. The kids came back and they're always saying to me here, can we stop at McDonald's? Oh, I haven't had McDonald's for so long. Can I have McDonald's? There are, in Amsterdam City, I think there's 4 or 5 McDonald's in the whole of the city. Driving from the city to, like, let's say I drive for a 1-hour drive to take the kids to a fun park or something, there might be a McDonald's on that, like, highway, might be, but very rarely. Like, very few of the roads have a McDonald's on that road, even compared to Australia. In Australia, we have McDonald's everywhere. We have all of these other fast food shops. And here in the Netherlands, there's very few of them. Same in Spain, there's very few of these fast food places. And the kids came back going, oh my God, it was cheaper to buy Coca-Cola than it was to buy a bottle of water. Oh, my mum tried to buy a salad and she couldn't buy a salad anywhere because there was nowhere to stop to get a salad. All of these comments the kids were making was really interesting to me because we as adults can understand that, but the kids seeing that, see the difference between the countries. So it makes me understand how hard it is in the US and in Australia and in the UK to make healthier choices where, like you said, it's all right there. Here, it's not like I can say, I'm going to take my daughter to McDonald's. There's just not a McDonald's around to take her to.
Yeah. Yeah. And even here in the United States, the other problem we have for all of our kids and teens is the food system in the school. It's, some people call it the biggest fast food chain in the country, because the food system that we're using to provide nutrition to our kids is providing these unhealthy, sugar-filled food, easy to serve, easy to keep on the shelf for a long time food. And it's really, parents here and kids here we're really struggling, because it is so, you are swimming upstream if you are trying to, it's like whack-a-mole, like, because it's the culture also that we have. It's so pervasive to be offering kids and offering yourself unhealthy food alternatives. And so it's hard to actually, it takes work, it takes effort to actually eat well and eat in a way that serves your body. And so many kids are growing up not really even able to do that, and they don't even know about it. So it's so maddening, because, like you said, it's all just about money, and it's about big food. Paying, like some people, I don't even know, I sound like a little bit of a conspiracy theorist when I start to talk about this, but, the fact of the matter is the amount of money that gets made by food companies, it's just astronomical. And so many of these foods are harmful to us, but there's no legislation about that because it would impact the money. And so and this is also a reason it just places the blame on the individual person. And the food companies just say, "Hey, we're just offering this. You don't have to choose
You
it.
don't have to eat it.
Yeah, you don't have to eat it. Don't buy it. If you don't want it, don't buy it." But meanwhile, they are aggressively marketing to teens and kids, and it's cheap because here in the U.S. at least, our government subsidizes so many of for example, corn that is put in so many of these products, corn syrup. So they're cheap. They're artificially cheaper. So the healthy food, nobody's subsidizing the farmers who are growing carrots and lettuce, and those guys have, so it's more expensive because they're not getting funds to help make it cheaper versus.
That's why Coca-Cola is so cheap compared to water.
Yeah.
But even my partner, he works in education. He's worked with thousands of schools across Europe, and he's launching in the US. And a couple of years back, we came over to the US to Florida, and we were in around Fort Lauderdale. And I stayed at the hotel. I was having lunch at a hotel. He said, "I'll pop off into this school and I'll come back and pick you up." And we were at like the W Hotel. I was sitting there waiting for him, and he went away for a few hours and he came back and he just had this look of absolute shock. And he was like, "Oh my God." He goes, "This school, the teacher is handing out pizza and candy to get the kids to concentrate." Now, he works with thousands of schools across Europe, and he just could not believe, and this is primary school, he could not believe, he's never seen anything like this. This is just not a thing in Europe at all. You do not give your kids candy and pizza to make them listen. And this was a school with less money, but it had enough money that they could have afforded his system. So it's not an extremely poor school. And his mind is blown by how even the teachers are doing it. And he's not blaming the teachers because the teachers have no choice. And he said the reason why is the teacher told him, "My kids do not get food from their parents. Their parents can't afford to feed them properly. So this is by me giving them something, gives them some sort of food because they can't afford." I don't know the exact system, but the teacher was explaining that the parents can't afford to provide as much food as a normal child should have. So yeah, they're filling up what food these kids are getting is just not even nutrition at all.
It's really not even it should not even be classified as food because it's more like a food-like substance. It's it's criminal and it's atrocious. It's a terrible way to treat children, and so it's a terrible way to treat families. And so we are prioritizing our government, and whoever is prioritizing money and profits over human health, and our kids are paying the price for that. So the only, until they change, which, I'm hoping, I think people are working for that and trying to provide education but when that much money is involved, change is going to come at a very slow rate, and it's going to have to be forced onto people.
Yeah. And I think it makes it realize, I think my point of all this is to say, we need to stop blaming ourselves as mothers of those things, and more so in the US than here. So here in Europe, it's sort of like, hey, we've got all the infrastructure for the right way. But in the US, I think it's really like, take a breath and say, okay, there's all of this fighting me on making the right choices. And I think we have to fight against everything that's bad. But I think take a step back and not blame yourself so much for it.
Yeah, realize like, oh, this is the culture, and this is the culture my kid is growing up in. You go to soccer practice, then the coach gives you a popsicle. Then you go here, and the guy gives you a cookie, and then here, and it's just the way our culture is. Yeah. So the only option that parents have at this point is to educate themselves, understand the world that we're living in. Like we said, compassionately, don't blame ourselves, but like, oh, okay, all right, this is where we're at. This is what we have, meaning like this is the system we're living in. but I want my child and I want my son, I want my son's friends to be as healthy as possible for as long as possible. People who are getting diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in their 20s and 30s, or pre-diabetes and then type 2 diabetes when they're 30 or 40, those disease processes did not start when they were 30 or 40. They're starting as teenagers. So it does matter. The other thing I think that it's a lot of, and probably people hear it from their doctors, oh, he looks thin, or he's a normal weight, quote, normal weight. It's fine, whatever. He can eat whatever. He can eat whatever, and only wait until someone is overweight or looks like they might have extra weight to make any dietary changes. What you and I are talking about here is healthy eating and choosing to eat healthy food. That should be for every single child on the planet. All of us, not just kids who are struggling with extra weight, because the metabolic consequences of choosing these foods that are going to harm your cells, they will catch up with you over time. And so we parents have this amazing opportunity, and it's never too late. So if you're a parent of a teenager or a 20-something even, it's never too late to, change how you're eating as the parent or the grandparent, change what you're doing so your kids will see what you're doing, and they'll start to internalize some of your behaviors as their own.
And what do you think about things like ADHD and mental health as well when it comes to bad choices? We're talking about what it does to our bodies weight-wise, but what about all the other things that...
All connected. I feel like it is all connected. Yeah. We are having skyrocketing rates of ADHD, skyrocketing rates of anxiety and depression. But when your energy source that's coming into your body to fuel your brain cells is actually damaging your brain cell, or I guess it's damaging your cells. So what we're talking about here, really, for example, I'll just say one quick thing, not to get too medical about it, but fructose. I think most people know that high fructose corn syrup isn't great for us. And a lot of people actively look for that on labels and, I'm not buying it if it has high fructose corn syrup. Well, what we need to know is that table sugar, just a regular sugar you have at home that you probably bake with, that is 50% fructose. So it's the same. So when our human bodies, we lost the ability to in a healthy way metabolize a lot of fructose a long time ago, like thousands and thousands of years ago. And there's a wonderful book by Dr. Richard Johnson, who's an expert in this area, and his research is just so fascinating. And the book is called Nature Wants Us to Be Fat. And so he talks about fructose, this sugar that's normally found in fruit. And so if you think of, for example, a hibernating bear, a bear that's about to go into hibernation, what is he doing? He is eating as many berries as he can possibly find. He's overloading on fructose, and he's gaining fat in it because he's going to need it to hibernate and because he won't eat for months, and he needs to be able to burn that fat. Well, our bodies react to fructose the same way. We don't metabolize fructose as an energy source. We store it as fat. So when we are getting all of this food that has added sugars in it, which has a lot of fructose in it, we're just, we're storing it as fat. And that's why...
For the time that we're going to have no food.
Yes. And then winter never comes, for us. Thank goodness, right? But this is what we need to understand. Parents need to really have a good understanding. It doesn't have to be like crazy detailed understanding, but understand the human biology, your child's human biology, and the food choices that are available to us today. And so I think it's, it's a more effective approach to helping our kids make healthier choices when they understand that when they choose something with fructose or, sugar in it, that's actually going down to their little mitochondria, their cellular, mitochondria, and costing them energy. And so it's not being used to generate energy or generate ATP, but when how fructose is metabolized, our body sees that as a cost. And so then it sends a message, oh, you got to eat more because it seems like we don't have anything here. So kids can really understand that. I have an 11-year-old son, and he certainly doesn't choose all the healthy food all the time, but over the past year, I've really seen a big change in him in his ability to understand and put kind of the two and two things together, like, oh, what I eat does affect how I feel, how I'm able to think at school, my behavior at school, so all of these problems that our kids are suffering from, anxiety, depression, honestly, almost everything can be not blamed on the food choices, but we should clean that up, and we could really focus on that. If a family wants to focus on healthy food, appropriate, good quality sleep, that's another thing. Movement, not hard exercise in order to lose weight, but movement as a way to help our muscles, help us feel better. And then learning some emotional regulation skills so that we can manage our stress. And yes, kids have stress. Sometimes parents say oh, he doesn't have a job. He's whatever. He doesn't have much. He shouldn't have any stress. And kids have a lot of stress. And so we need to help them be able to understand their feelings and manage their feelings so they can manage their stress. So when you work on all those four, sometimes I call them the 4 pillars of health, nutrition, movement, sleep, and emotional regulation. If we focus on all of those things and your child is still having problems with anxiety or depression, attention, okay, fine. Then move forward, or, then seek medical help for all of those things. But there's so much parents can do to improve their kids' health. But like we mentioned, it's work for parents because of the culture that we're in, and you're swimming upstream with in all of those areas in our modern world.
I remember seeing about 20 years ago now, it was about 20 years ago, there was I think it was on 60 Minutes or one of those sort of shows, that they had a really controversial segment, and it was something that the morning news were talking about the next day, like, wow, how can they say this? There was I think it was a doctor, because I don't remember, it was 20 years ago, but this, I think, doctor had said, I can change children's ADHD just by, and that's when we used to call it ADD, yeah? Just by changing their food choices. And she put a camera inside a house of these 3 boys that the mother was like, I cannot do anything about my children. They're crazy. They climb up the walls. They climb onto the ceiling, like crazy. She showed on the camera these 3 kids, they were animals, like complete animals. And then what she said was, for a few weeks, I can't remember exactly how long, she just said, you are just feeding your kids really terrible food. And she cut out all like the processed, like the frozen hamburgers and things like that. And this was in Australia. So back then we didn't have as much bad food. 20 years ago, it's gotten worse over the years. And she had cut out all of those. Like the mother was just buying all the cheap stuff. I think she was a single mom and she couldn't afford anything else. So the doctor had shown her how to implement a better food regime. And then she showed the cameras that the children were like normal boys, yeah? And that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And this doctor was saying back then, I can help with ADHD just by doing these things. And back then it was completely controversial, and that's not true. It won't work. And she was saying, I've got proof. But I think it's like you say, until you actually do that, you cannot blame the child until you check food choices. Because I think I had a boyfriend once who had terrible depression. And now that I think back on it, he literally ate nothing but McDonald's and drank Coca-Cola, like
Mm,
literally would not put a vegetable in his body, would
mm,
not eat anything healthy. And now that I think back, I'm like, no wonder. And I was always eating healthy. No wonder
mm.
he was
There's
the
a
way he was. He was an
there's a
apple.
new branch of medicine. Well, it's probably not new, but it's becoming more and more well known. It's called nutritional psychiatry. So
Okay, wow.
it's working with people on their diets, with the food choices they're making. So, for example, if you have somebody who's had you know depression that is not responding to medications, or schizophrenia that's not responding to medications, and they're working with the people who've been suffering for so long, changing their diet. And the first thing people do is take out highly processed foods.
Mm,
And there's so many reports of complete remission, or their depression goes away. All their symptoms go away. Not in everybody, of course, but
no,
I think
but it's a starting.
we really just need to accept that food makes up every single one of our cells, even our brain cells,
Mm,
of course. And but this is not something doctors are taught. And this is not something, and I don't think it's a huge plot to keep America, or keep people sick, and so that we can make money. I don't think it's that. I think it just happens to be the way that people were taught. And I guess I don't know why doctors don't.
I've got a theory on it.
Oh, what is
Because I had 20 years of like a very bad, I had SIBO, but an extreme case of SIBO. But for about 15 years, they didn't even diagnose me. So not one doctor, I went and got every test done. Not one doctor ever told me to cut bread out of my diet. And it was completely by accident. I've actually done a whole blog about like exactly my story. But mine got so bad that I couldn't keep my eyes open after I ate. Like I literally had these migraines where any light was like agonizing for hours, 3 hours after I ate. I had all the normal symptoms of bloatedness and feeling sick, but the other symptoms were I literally fell asleep while driving after eating and opened my eyes to a pole in my, like just away from my car. I just stopped in time. Another time my car went into a ditch because I just fell asleep while driving. Um, it was from the food. And I was like, what's going on? Like all these weird things were happening. But the depression from that, because of the feeling that I got, was just, I stopped working for about 4 months because of it. But no doctor ever told me what it was. They were just like, oh, you're just depressed. You've got to get over the depression. I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm far from depressed. This is not depression. There's something else wrong with my body. And for a long time, I was really angry with all the doctors because once one of them said, just drink some mint tea, you'll be fine. I'm like, mint tea is not how, like, there's something else going on. And I found a really bizarre thing. It's actually a bacteria in my nose that is going into my stomach. And by killing off that bacteria, I use a cream in my nose every day. And that actually takes away that bacteria. And it's Staphylococci aureus that's in my nose that 50% or 80% of people have it. But in my case, it's creating this. And just by using this cream in my nose, I actually calmed down the bacteria to the point where now I can eat pasta, I can eat bread. Not that I eat a lot of it, but I can eat it now. Whereas before, if I smelt it, I would get sick.
Mm,
Now, I had been sick for so long and I was blaming all the doctors. But what I actually think it is, doctors don't get many hours of nutrition training. That's not part of the normal thing. And then as for science in general, I think because these things are not killing us, it's not cancer, it's not something that's actually killing us. There's not enough research that's going into it because there's no real diagnosis. And I think that up until recently, there was no understanding that, and even now, it's a nutritional thing for a big case of it. The money is just not there to get the research done. But I think if more money was put into the research, and I think now it's starting to, because now we're starting to understand is actually if we can stop things like you're saying, mental disorders, then we can be in a situation where we can have a better overall well-being of everyone. But I don't think it was ever the doctors. Even I had suffered for so many years. I never blamed doctors. I think that we just never had the research into it because it wasn't physically killing us like a cancer was. And that's where the money was going. Or something like when you get bitten by a mosquito, what's it called? And then you end up being really sick from that. I think that there's other things that have been priority.
Yeah, at least the Western healthcare, we react when somebody becomes sick. When you start having a problem, that's when doctors tend to get very involved. And there's been much less emphasis and much less value on preventative healthcare. So sometimes people are like, it's not really healthcare, it's sick care. We are only taking care of people once they get sick. And as a pediatrician, seeing newborn babies all the way up to, 20 somethings, part of our job is preventative care. And, I love that. But at the same time, it's the least well respected, number one, but also least well compensated. As a healthcare system, we just don't value that. So, but it needs to change. It needs to change because we're just getting sicker. Adults, our population is getting sicker. We're getting sicker younger. And all these medications we're throwing at people. Your LDL is high. Take a statin. Oh, you have, metabolic syndrome. Take metformin. Oh, you have this. Oh, your teenager has depression. Take Prozac. They're sometimes providing a little bit of relief, but they're not really fixing the problem. They're trying to cure the symptom. If you have so we call those like non-communicable diseases, but if you have an infection, if you have a staph infection, or if you have something that you need, you have an ear infection, you have a cellulitis, an antibiotic, that's perfect medicine for that, right? You'll give the person you need to kill off that bacteria so your body can resume its normal functioning. But these other medications that we're offering people, they're not going to the root cause of the actual problem. They're trying to help some of the symptoms. But if the person keeps doing everything that they're doing, because they haven't been advised to change in any way, then they're going to keep having those symptoms. And so where the real struggle is, and again, we don't support people in this manner because it's not compensated. Doctors aren't compensated for this. The healthcare is not, the healthcare doesn't pay for this. Is once we know what to do, once a person knows what to do, there's a gap between knowing what to do and then actually knowing how to actually do it for yourself. And so we don't have the resources to walk people through, like from point A to point B, to help them transition to eating a healthier diet, help them work on sleep, help them work on movement, because it is kind of an experiment. You have to be willing to try something for a few weeks, see how you feel. Oh, for my individual body, that doesn't feel that good, so I need to try something else. In medicine, if I would see a family that was struggling with a child with extra weight, I would say, okay, we'll do this, this, and this. Okay, come back in 6 months and we'll see how it's going. Yeah, 1000% not helpful at all. And so our system is not great, unfortunately. It's not embarrassing to be a doctor, but it's just so, and I don't blame the doctors, but it's certainly not what most doctors went into medicine for, to help people. But there's so many conflicting, what's the right word? Conflicting goals or conflicting,
it's more the system, isn't it? It's not about the individual doctor, it's about the system.
Yeah.
But I've got so many questions based on that, because that was actually really great. I read quite a few of your blog posts before getting on this call with you. I did a lot of research to see what are people actually asking, like what are the questions people are asking online. So I've got quite a few great statistics which actually freaked me out. The word emotional eating, people are searching for that 1,300 times a month on YouTube.
Wow.
So people are asking about emotional eating. So I found that a really interesting term. That was one of the biggest ones, is people, not just weight loss, but I wanted to get deeper into, because like you said, it's not about the weight loss, it's about the why are we doing it, but also how to change that. So emotional eating gets so many searches. And on your blog, you talk about 3 words that will change your life. So I thought that actually that was a really good, because we can say eat healthy, but I think those 3 words are actually a really good starting point for people to use as their base for everything to become healthier. Do you want to tell us about those 3 words?
Oh my goodness. Well, I haven't read my blog in a little while. You're going to have to remind me. Not sure. I can't remember. If you tell me, I'll jog my memory.
I get to choose, or I will choose, or...
Well, okay, that's what I thought you were getting to, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
This is, this was a light bulb moment for me, and literally a life-changing moment for me. Because when I realized I don't have to eat a salad, or I don't have to eat chicken, I'm choosing to eat chicken. I'm choosing to eat a salad. When I realize, like, oh, it's in my control, I'm the one who gets to decide what I want to do based on the results I want in my life. And so it was so empowering to me to have that mind shift. For example, I gave up eating flour and sugar a long time ago. I almost never choose to eat things with flour and sugar. I certainly could. It's everywhere. And the beauty of the idea of choosing something is I never feel deprived, because, I don't want to eat that because of the way it reacts with my body. I don't feel great. And so, it's kind of like I describe it sometimes as, do you think that vegetarians feel deprived that they don't get to eat meat? Well, most probably not, because they're choosing to be vegetarians. They're choosing to eat, not meat things. So once adults who, so many people say, oh, I have to eat this, or I'm on a diet, I have to eat this salad, or that is not going to be a sustainable way of changing the way you're eating. And it also is tied, you can tell from that, I have to eat this, that, there's an emotional component, and they feel put upon, they feel deprived, they feel
negative, yeah. The negative side.
Yeah. Yeah. So we describe emotional eating as any eating that's not for fuel reasons, like, and not that you're not hungry, you're not physically hungry, but you want to eat something, you're bored, or you're happy, or you're sad, and the whole idea of that, my coach says all the time, and I think what she says is so powerful. You don't have an overeating problem. You have an under-feeling problem. And so we oftentimes eat or drink to buffer away our usually our negative emotions, things that feel uncomfortable. When we're restless, when we walk by the kitchen and we should be, or we're thinking, oh, well, I should be going to, do this next thing on my to-do list. Oh, but I'll just stop and have something here. It's just using food in a way food wasn't ever meant to be used as. And again, not looking at ourselves and being like, oh, wow, that's so wrong, and I'm such an idiot, or I'm so bad that I use food that way. No, honestly, we're training our kids to eat that way. Oh, you did a great job at soccer. Here's a lollipop, or here's a popsicle. Oh, you had a bad day, and let's go get an ice cream. We are it's just it's our culture here. And so we're training ourselves to eat in ways
To use food.
that aren't really serving our body. Yeah.
Mm. No, and I find that really interesting, that just that alone, if you use that thought process of I get to choose this, I actually use that a lot with my stepkids when it comes to just life in general.
Yeah.
So when they're talking about, oh, I don't want to clean my bedroom. Yeah, you can sit there and you can complain about it all you want. But you should be sitting there saying, yeah, I get to clean up because then I get to find things that I haven't seen for a while because they've been hidden under everything. And I think that that's like, I get to choose to wear clean clothes because I want that to be something I'd be proud of. I don't want it to be something, I have to change my clothes now. I have to have a shower. No, be happy that you get to do those things. So I like that's by instilling that into ourselves, but also into our children. It works across everything in life, and it's not just about food choices.
It's one of the most powerful parenting,
Empowering.
strategies. And there's a term, autonomy supportive parenting, and what that it's exactly that idea. I use it with my son, and especially as he's getting older. Okay, you have a little bit of homework to do. Okay. Oh, you can choose to do it. And then what are the benefits that you're going to experience yourself if you choose leaving me out of it? This isn't my problem. I already know how to read.
You're doing it for me, yeah.
Yeah. Or you can choose not to do it. And what are the negative things that you might occur? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but in 6 months from now, if you don't read every night like your teacher wants you to, 6 months from now, where are you going to be? And so helping kids really, and this is why parents need to be so involved in kids' food choices and in all of their other skills, doing their homework and all of these other things we're talking about, is because kids and teenagers' brains are just developing. They're not as developed. They're not mature. By definition, they're kids. So what we're talking about is the development and the maturation of the prefrontal cortex. And our prefrontal cortex, like I'm pointing to my forehead because this is kind of where it is in the brain. You can think about it like the CEO of your brain. It's the part of your brain with the big picture in mind. So for me, my prefrontal cortex is thinking about Sheila 6 months from now or a year from now. And it has the capability to be like, okay, what I choose to do today impacts my future self. So I'm going to do this, this, and this, even though I don't really feel like it right in the moment. So kids don't have that full capacity yet. So, when you offer a child, you can have this, pizza.
It's the marshmallow test, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
The famous marshmallow test.
But but they just can't. But it's every single thing in their life. But we can help them understand. But you actually have to go through. You have to take the time with your child. And then you have to be willing to let them make the choice. Like for me, I'm like, it's up to you if you are going to do your homework or not do your homework. Before you make a decision, let's go through what could possibly happen. That would be great if you do it. And what could possibly happen that would be less great if you don't do it. And then I let him choose. And so what I'm seeing now for him is he's learning more and more to tie his own results with the actions he took and the decisions that he made. And so we do this all the time with especially teenagers. I mean, the more they get and the more freedom they have, we want to foster. Yeah, we want to foster their autonomy, but also help them because they could have gaps because their prefrontal cortex is just developing. We might want to help them make like a 360 view of their decisions instead of.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. And so we need to do that.
I haven't had the life experience yet.
Yeah. And we need to do that with food for our kids too, and all lifestyle behaviors.
I can give a really good example. So talking about I choose. So when I met my stepkids, I did all the cooking and I love to cook. I'm Polish, is my background. So a lot of the foods I make like foods that are unusual. And here in the Netherlands, the food is, people in the Netherlands, every day they eat 2 slices of bread with a slice of cheese inside it with nothing else, and they think that that's a lunch. So Dutch people have got a really, really low bar when it comes to food options, and they don't have any cultural foods or anything. Like, the food choices here are very bland and very basic and not really anything to it. And so when I met them, I was coming along with, I love to cook. I grew up in Australia. I grew up in Melbourne, where food is in Melbourne. That's the culture there. And I was always making different meals, and they were very much like, ew. Before they even knew what I was cooking, they'd walk into the kitchen and they'd just go, ew, that smells disgusting. I'm not going to eat that tonight. I'm like, you don't even know what it is. I'm not eating it. So I'd have 4 kids at the table. It went on for about a year, where every single night, before they even got to see what it was, they just decided they hated it before anything. So it was, and then of course I'm trying to cook things that the kids will like, but I want to give them variety. I want to give them vegetables. They're not used to eating these vegetables. They're not used to eating different things. So this went on for about a year. And finally one day I said to my partner, look, I'm done. If it's going to be like this, I'm just not cooking anymore, because I'm getting really sick of it. I'm just not living like this. So he came up with this concept, and I thought it was brilliant. He sat them down and he said, from this day forward, you're going to have to choose one food each that you don't have to ever eat. It's your choice. If that food's ever put in a meal, you can then say, I'm not eating this dish. You can eat it if you want, but you can say no to it. But one food, you can change it every 3 months or 4 months, something like that, like every quarter. But once you choose that food, you can't decide tomorrow you're changing that food. You have to stick with it for a certain amount of time. But you're allowed to change it after a few months. And that moment, 2 of the kids put their hands up, I'm not eating this. The other kid's like, I'm not eating this. And the youngest daughter, who was like the worst, she was like 7 at the time. She's like, let me think about what food it's going to be. That was 7 years ago. She still hasn't chosen her food. So literally what happened from that day was they decided, and one of the kids, the eldest boy, he couldn't eat red peppers, capsicums. So like for him, they just made him gag. So he was just like, I can't have it. So, but what happened after that was that sometimes he was like, oh, I can eat it in that dish. I can eat it in that dish.
Yeah.
And then I agreed. I said, look, from my end, from now on, if a majority of you don't like a dish I cook, I'll just never cook it again. But my whole thing is, I want you to try new foods. I want you to be open to different foods. I just want you to have the experience of different foods, because until you try it, you don't know. And maybe you don't like the, potato in that meal, but you might like the potato in a different meal.
Mm-hmm.
So until you try these different foods, you don't know. And they all agreed to that. Since then, we've never had any issues, because if one of them says something like, oh, I don't know if I want to eat this, it doesn't happen very often. If they do, I just look at them and I just go, it's not on your list. And then they just go, okay, and they go back to eating. And I'm not saying these kids are like these angel kids that, oh, that wouldn't be possible. You don't understand the fights we used to have. Like, the fights were just 4 kids, chaos every week. We had them for 50% of the week. 50% of the week was this chaotic fights every night. Every kid liked something different. And so it got to the point where when we implemented this, it has worked brilliantly, and we don't have any arguments now. And occasionally the kids go, you know what, I don't like that meal. And 2 of them will be like, yeah, sorry, Carolyn, I don't like it. And I'll go, okay, I'm just not cooking that again. I'll cook something different then. And it's just not an argument, because I know I can put those vegetables in a different type of meal next time. And this has worked brilliantly. And so when we have visitors over now, they're like, wow, your kids are amazing. They try everything. And since then, they've traveled to many different places where they actually now will try anything. So we'd been to Morocco just before this happened. And they were like, we were in this beautiful restaurant and we got a big plate of like all different foods. And they were all like complaining. And we're like, guys, just at least try the things. You don't know you don't like them. Since then, we can travel with them and they have no problems with at least trying a majority of their foods, which I think that's changed their worlds as well. Not just my world, but their worlds have been opened up as well.
What a huge gift you gave to them by being willing to keep at it for so long and to kind of endure that struggle. But, you talked about so many different things, but one thing is the exposures. So what you did was you kept offering them exposures to different foods and to different vegetables. And we know that, kids sometimes need 15 or 20 exposures to a food to be willing to eat it. And so that's something
Mm.
oftentimes
Yes.
parents fall down, because well, I've cooked for just broccoli. I cooked broccoli and he wouldn't eat it. I cooked it. He won't eat it. So so they give up on eating that versus just, okay, well, he's not eating it right now, but let's see if there's a way we could figure out that he could potentially eat it. But I also liked what you said about like, just, okay, because there are certain foods that I don't like to eat. There's probably foods that you don't like the taste of, and kids have that too. They do, but not everything. Not every vegetable. That's just taking it too far. So what a great strategy to offer those kids, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it works beautifully. So
Yeah.
if anyone's listening and they don't know what to do, it's a really good strategy. I wanted to ask you about talking about feeding kids. You spoke about on your blog, again, there was another blog I read, and this one gets 6,000 searches every month just on YouTube alone, is how to stop snacking.
Yeah.
Is the search term that people are asking about. And you did a great blog post about snacking and how you don't believe in it. So can you give us a little bit of information about your position on snacking?
Sure. There's, biologically speaking, snacking is not, well, I guess it would depend on what you're snacking on, but we never snacked. Here in the United States, snacking kind of became a thing in the 70s and 80s and has been gangbusters since then. It it came of age with the snack food industry and Big Food making these products that they wanted people to eat. So there's data. People used to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And kids could go a long period of time. They would eat well at breakfast, then they would have 4 to 6 hours, eat lunch, 4 to 6 more hours, eat dinner, and then, that was it. Today, so that's 3 meals a day. Today, kids in America are eating anywhere between, I think, 7 to 10 times a day. And so we've just exponentially increased the frequency that we're eating. And the problem with that is that depending on the food you're eating, and a lot of Americans at least, but people buy snack food. So they snack on snack foods, which are high in sugar. And so when your sugar goes up, your insulin level goes up. And when your insulin level is high in your bloodstream, it doesn't allow you to use your fat stores as energy. So a long time ago, when people weren't snacking, and even before there were even 3 meals a day, you could, our bodies are designed to store some fat when we have the ability to have those excess calories and store them as energy. But our body easily can access that fat when we need to, when there's a gap in our eating, and when there's a period of time where we're not eating. And so that's how people maintained their body weight and stayed lean and could, do all the things that they needed to do. Today, we're never giving our body, because of the frequency of snacking and the snack choices that people are making, the food choices, our bodies are never experiencing that period of time where our body is able to access our own fat stores for energy. So we're storing fat, but we're never using that fat. And that's why people are gaining weight and we're storing extra weight. So I am not a fan of snacking. I don't snack myself. I try to eat enough at a meal of real food so that I can go 4 to 6 hours or longer even without eating. The thing you really realize as an adult, if you are willing to give up flour and sugar and get those out of your diet, it kind of resets and balances your hunger hormones. So you're not even hungry. You don't even feel like snacking, except emotionally. Like if I don't want to do something, or I'm like, oh, I have to go, whatever, mow the lawn or clean the garbage or something. And I'm like, oh, I should eat something, like that. And then you can realize like,
it's an avoidance.
Yeah, I'm just trying to avoid doing unpleasant tasks, but I have my hunger levels changed. This was the game changer for me biologically that I had never tried before. I spent decades trying to lose weight, and I never really could because I was always hungry. So, for example, if I was eating, say, 2 cookies instead of 4 or 5 cookies, even that so I was cutting back, and I was supposedly like trying to lose weight that way, but the sugar in those cookies and the flour turns immediately to sugar in our body. So the sugar in that cookie was driving up my insulin, which was affecting my hunger hormones. So I was quickly hungry again. And you can't lose weight and you can't maintain a healthy weight when you're hungry all the time. So our snacking and the rise of the snack food industry pushing these unhealthy snack foods on us, it's actually making people hungrier. So people are eating more, and it's been a disaster. If you look at there's, I forget where the article is. It's either the Journal of the New England Journal of Medicine. I'm not sure. I'd have to look back. But there's a graph that shows the rise of snacking and the number of times per day that people snack, and the rise of pediatric obesity in the United States. And they mirror each other. So, and today here, at least in the US, kids are offered snack foods all the time. They go to school, they have breakfast, then they're offered a snack, then they have lunch, then a snack, then they come home from school, a snack, have dinner, a snack. And it's just, we have this mentality that our kids need this. But the truth is they really don't. But we don't want them to be hungry. So my recommendation for parents is use real food as a snack. So don't buy chips, don't buy all the, the snack foods. Oh, you're hungry? Okay. You could have some, protein, your cheese, meat, just use any kind of real food, fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds. And that will dampen, depending on what you choose, you won't have that glucose rise, you won't have that insulin spike, and your body will handle that much better over time.
I even see that. So I'm the same with my daughter, is that she goes through most days where she eats like 4 breakfasts. So she'll have breakfast, and an hour later she'll want another breakfast, and she'll have Pardon?
She's like a hobbit.
Yeah, she's crazy. And then in the afternoon, sometimes she wants to snack a lot. And so I give her, fresh, like real nuts or carrot or something, cheese. But I was in the supermarket one day and I was looking at these, and I was like, even when she was young, I tried to stay away from all these like processed biscuits, crackers and things. And I was looking at one of the packets, and it's on there, from 12 months plus. And I thought, okay, these are like, it's an actual kids-friendly food in the kids section. I was shocked with what was inside there. Absolutely shocked. So even those things that you think are specifically made for children, they're terrible.
Yeah,
they're just as bad as the adult version.
Yeah, yogurt pouches with fruit. Yeah. And so this is a tip for parents. You really need to understand the food labels. And I don't know what the food labels are like in the Netherlands, but here they have to have added sugars. How many added sugars are in the food? Yeah. And even that, it's a little,
they word it in ways sometimes that you just go, that's interesting.
I think there's at least 270 different words for sugar. Yeah. And the other thing is, if it's under 5% of the complete ingredients, then they don't even have to list it. So you could have 20 different kinds of sugar, but if they're under 20%, you don't have to even list them on the package.
Not only that, but they can be out by, is it 10 or 20% of the so if it says 100 calories, they can be out by 20% on the calories, which is also making up the sugar amount. So they can be out by 20% of what it's actually in there, based on what's allowed by the regulatory agencies.
It's so frustrating. So
you just have to stay away from it, I think.
Yeah, I teach parents to be like, I call it sugar detective, and look for added sugars. It's in spaghetti sauce, ketchup, barbecue sauce. all of these kid foods, kids like sweet things. So if your kid's willing to eat it, it probably has sugar in it. Kids can learn to eat things that don't have sugar, of course. But here, or the CDC and the World Health Organization, they recommend that kids from 0 to 2 years old have 0 grams of added sugar a day. So all of those little things that parents buy for their kids, I did too. Those little biscuits, those puffs,
or the juice packets.
yeah. Juice. Kids just don't need juice. That's another tip for parents.
Yeah.
They only need water. Juice is just this huge fructose load right to their livers. They can't handle it, and they'll store that as fat. But 0 to 2 years old, you're supposed to have 0 grams of added sugar. So we're not talking about sugar in whole fruit, apples, pears, whatever fruit you're choosing. That's totally fine. And then 2 years old to the rest of us, the recommendation is to have about 25 grams of sugar a day. And that might sound like a lot. Oh, I probably don't get 25 grams of sugar a day. Well, it's about 4 or 5 teaspoons. But one of my son's friends came over the other day, and he had a Gatorade, a sports drink. I don't know if they sell that where you are.
Yes. Yeah.
69 grams of sugar in the bottle that he had. Yeah, I am not joking you. And, it's a sports drink. It's healthy. He's a sporty guy. He runs around. No, it's just so. And so half of that sugar is fructose. So half of that 69 grams is going right to his liver, and he can't process that. And
so what would be, let's say someone wants to still give their kids some sort of sweet treats, and is honey better? Is there any of those sugars that you say are better, or you're just saying like for kids? Because I know that now going through menopause and I'm learning all about like sugars and that, something that I stayed away from for so many years, that sugars just a no-go. But with kids, it is a little bit harder. So
yeah,
if you're going to give them something sweet, is there a sugar, or you're just saying like, just don't?
Well, I mean, my son eats sugar too. And I think, this is the world that we live in as parents. I think just understanding that the sugar is making their insulin go up, whether it's honey, whether it's organic, all the sugars are kind of acting in the same way. But okay. I would, so I don't think that there's necessarily one sugar that's better than another. I don't like those, although I'm not a fan of the artificial sugars either for kids. Those negatively affect people's microbiome, and also the problem.
Now there's some talk coming out about the actual like diseases that it causes for some of them as well.
And the problem with those sugars, for example, is they are exponentially sweeter than regular sugar. So what that does is affects your child's taste buds, so that they could, if they're getting a lot of artificial sugars, they might not even be able to taste like the sugar that you would have in an apple, or the sugar. There is sugar in carrots. Nobody says, oh, these carrots are so sweet, because our taste buds are so jacked up to, we're so used to tasting things with huge, the sweetness level is huge. Most kids can't really taste. And I think that's why a lot of kids are not great at eating vegetables. Well, number one, kids don't really like that bitter flavor. That's a like, a evolutionary protective mechanism. Oh, it's bitter. It might be bad for me. I might not want to eat it. But the other thing I think is vegetables don't taste good to kids because their taste buds are so used to getting so much sugar from other things. They can't even taste the natural sugar in a food.
So what would you say if people are listening and they're in a situation now where they're listening saying, hang on, I'm making those mistakes in my own child's life? What would be a few steps that you recommend that they take to start the change process?
So I like my recommendation is for parents to start with themselves. Before you change anything for your child, like really try to get to an understanding of how you and your body would, react to the changes that you eventually want to make for your child. So what I mean by that is parents become aware of how many processed foods you're eating, and try to cut that back. Become aware of the sugars, the added sugars that you're eating, and cut that back. And ideally in my program, my coaching program that I work with parents, I recommend that the parents, it's mostly moms, I recommend that you give up flour and sugar, not permanently, not forever, but for a period of time. And I use a term like reset to factory settings, because it does reset your body to kind of the way it was designed to be. Your hunger hormones are balanced, and when you can get through the 2 or 3 days that it doesn't feel great to be withdrawing from sugar and flour, once you're beyond that and your body starts to really function like it's supposed to, you realize how good you feel. And oh my gosh, I have so much energy. Oh my gosh, I'm not even, I don't crave this anymore. My hunger levels are better. I'm sleeping better. Everything's better for me. And then when a mom feels that and experiences that for herself, they want that for their child, and then they also can see what's possible for their child. And so then it's not like go cold turkey on your child. I never recommend that a child, the parents try to police all the things that their kids are eating. But then you make healthy swaps, for your kids, over time. There's something, and I'll give you the link that you could give to your listeners.
Yes, please. I'll put in the show notes.
I have a thing called how to make parenting around food feel less hard. And what this describes is this tool that parents can use called the division of responsibility. And this is a concept created by a woman named Ellen Satter. She's a dietitian, a family therapist. But she created this framework to think about how you're feeding your kids. And she describes parents' jobs and kids' jobs. And the parents' jobs are to decide what is being offered to eat, when it's being offered to eat, and where it's being offered to eat. And the kids' jobs are to decide whether they're going to eat and how much they're going to eat. So this is what I work on with my clients. Is the biggest stumbling block is usually the what to offer the kids, because what you described going through with your own family, you took on that job, you owned that job of what to eat, and your kids gave you a lot of pushback against that, which is fine. But it's your job to decide what. It's their job to decide whether and if. Whether they're going to eat and if they're going to eat. So that framework can really be life-changing for families because, if a mom feels confident, like, oh, that's one of my jobs. And I also view it as a safety issue. I say this to my son, it's my job as your mom to keep you as healthy and safe as possible. And I just know that this food's not actually even safe for you. Not that it's junk food and you shouldn't eat it, but it's actually not safe for you. So why would I give you a food that I think is harming you? Yep. And so when parents can feel confident in their jobs and in their role, then they can just let the children do their job, which is to decide whether they're going to eat it and how much they're going to eat. Now, of course, there's lots of tips and tricks, like you don't want to just make something that your kids don't like, or you don't want every meal to be a battle. So I recommend if you have, like, you have 4 kids, you would want to make something that at least whatever the meal that you're pulling together has at least one thing in it that each child likes to eat. And that way they'll always have something available for them to eat at that meal. And then it's just, experimenting, a work in progress. But over time, what this does is it teaches the kids that they're in charge of their bodies. They eat when they're hungry. They learn to stop eating when they've had enough. And the parent in the job of deciding what to eat is acting like their child's prefrontal cortex, deciding what they think is the best food for them, and then letting everybody do their jobs. And this isn't to say you always have to make a super healthy. The parent can decide, okay, tonight we're having pizza. And then the child decides how much pizza if they want to eat pizza and how much pizza they're going to eat. So it's really, this is not, the division of responsibility is not saying eat these certain foods and avoid these certain foods. It's giving families their individual jobs. And then when people do their jobs, that results in, a learning, the kids learning to eat in a healthy way.
Yeah, that's great. I've got another tip as well, having 4-step kids. And one thing that I found worked really well for our family to make it, because I think I love to cook. So for me, it was easy, but I think there's a lot of mums that either don't have time or don't enjoy it. So one of the best things that I used to do to have something that everyone would eat was I would get a platter, a long platter, and I would put on there strips of different vegetables. So I'd either grate them, just a box grater, and grate everything on different sizes. So I'd grate some grate some carrot on one, I'd grate something else on another, and I'd have like different, or chop it up. So I'd have different sizes of everything, chop up some tomatoes and have strips of lettuce and spinach and different things on the plate. And nice and colorful. So I'd like either do it where I'd like rotate the colors, have some avocado. So it'd be like a red, then a green, then an orange, then a red, then a green. So it'd look really pretty on the table. Everyone loved it. And then I'd either give them like a pita bread or a bowl of rice. And when I did rice, I'd mix in there some couscous or some different grains. So it was like rice, but with some sort of other multigrain in there. And then they would get their bowl of rice or a pita bread, whatever it was for that night, and some grilled chicken, really simple to cut up some chicken breast and grill some chicken. And I would say to everyone, I don't care what you eat, but you have to choose at least 3 of those vegetables. I don't care. And I'd have a choice of like 6 different vegetables, no dressing on it or anything. And then they could go, okay, tonight I want the cucumber and the carrot and the tomato, or they'd have to have minimum of 3. I don't care which ones. And then I would try to make them eat as much as possible, and they'd either have it in their wrap or they'd have it on the rice with chicken. They could have different dressings on there. And then anything that was left was really easy to put in the fridge for the next day because I had no dressing on it. So then it could just go in the fridge and become the salad for the next day. But that was a really good one that every kid then had autonomy of what they wanted.
They love that.
And they felt, and the first time I ever did it, it was just such a great one. That worked even before we had the rule of the one food choice. But that was just the one that they had complete power, and they always asked for that meal. And the chicken was always different. Sometimes I'd make popcorn chicken, which was like chicken schnitzels, little chicken schnitzels with it, or grilled chicken, or maybe I'd put some fish on the side, whatever it was. But I found that then they all had the choice of which of those vegetables they wanted. And yeah, that to me, and it's so easy because you're not thinking about how am I going to make a salad. It's like literally chopping up some vegetables and putting it on a plate and some grilled chicken, and that's all there was to it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's so good.
Because I think as busy moms, we need to have something that works as well. I think that's the hardest thing.
And you mentioned cooking, and I think that is such a powerful and empowering skill. And like you said, it does take time, and you do need to have some basic knowledge of how to cook. My mom actually taught me how to cook when I was a little kid, and I love to cook. But some people don't, I know. But I would, if you're a parent who's like, I don't know how to cook, or I don't love cooking, or I would revisit that, and because the upsides of knowing how to cook are so freeing and powerful. There's another doctor, I read all of his books. His name is Dr. Robert Lustig, and he is a genius. And he says, if you don't know how to cook, you are hostage to the processed food industry. And it's so true. And, here in the US, at least, they used to have home economics in school. They would teach people how to cook. And that's a lot of those things have been cut out because of budgetary reasons and focusing on other things. But that is and now with YouTube and now with the internet, you can learn to cook very simple, very easy things, and it's not hard. And I would really encourage all parents to learn how to cook and teach your kids how to cook too, because then you're offering them that life skill that is freeing for them, where they go off to college or get their first apartment or whatever. They don't have to eat out at a restaurant or get takeout or buy things every night. They can cook for themselves, and that they will just stay so much healthier that way.
Yeah, I tried to make a rule of every month the kids have to cook with me at least once a month.
Oh, great.
And they get to cook whatever they want, but we come up with a recipe together and we cook together. And the eldest boy, who's now in university, lives out of home, he actually talks to me about recipes, and his friends are shocked that he knows how to cook.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for me going through that process,
Mhm.
and I have to admit, especially for someone like me who cooks a lot and I know what I'm doing, it's not that it's an easy process to do, because you're cleaning up after them, you're helping them. And if you don't know how to cook, it's probably even bigger. But I think as a parent, if we can give that to our children,
Mhm.
I think that that's something that they look back on. Like my stepdaughter went to Thailand recently for a trip, and she was doing a cooking class. We gave her a cooking class there, and she wrote me a message afterwards. She said, "The lady can't believe how much I know about cooking, and I learned it from you." Yeah, so
It
it made
is
me realize
yeah.
all of that time of the extra effort has actually come back
Mhm.
in a very good way. And it's the power of the children. And if you're a parent that doesn't know how to cook because you didn't get that experience from your own parents, then you know the disservice you're doing by
Yeah.
not going through that process. And like you said, YouTube, you can learn the most basic cooking now
Mhm.
and go through that process with your child. And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be anything. And what I love about this salad that I spoke about is that when you're making a salad, if you don't know how to follow a complete recipe and you want to come up with an idea, or you don't have all the ingredients for that salad, then mixing the wrong things together can taste really disgusting. So then you don't like what you've made, and then you go, I'm not a good cook. But then if you do what I did and just put all the things out on a plate, the children get to make their gross selections by themselves. Like sometimes I go, why would you add those two things together? But they like it. So who cares? As long as they're eating it, I think that that's the most important part. And that's why just putting together something where they grab their own pieces from the platter is actually such a simple way to take away that anxiety about cooking as well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And, so getting your child involved in even grocery shopping, going to the store with you and picking out the vegetables or whatever you're going to eat. And then the cooking process. You know how earlier we talked about exposures to food? This also has been shown to help kids be willing to try a wider variety of foods. For example, if they refuse to eat broccoli, but you're going to cook with them with something with broccoli, at the grocery store, you say, hey, could you run over there and grab some broccoli for me? And that's considered even an exposure, because they're going there, they're touching it, they might be smelling it, they're seeing it, and they're getting used to it. And then they come home, oh, chop that up for me, and they're chopping or whatever, and so that's another exposure. So it is so valuable over time to be willing to take the extra time and extra work to go shopping with your children. So much easier for us to just do it ourselves and to cook it for ourselves, cook something ourselves. But it's so powerful to include them, take the extra time, and teach them.
Yeah, definitely. You have been amazing, Sheila, and we've taken up so much of your time already. I've got one more question for you. What are 3 tips I always ask all of my guests, just 3 general life tips that you would give to any woman listening that's over the age of 40 that you think are important tips for a more fulfilling life?
My first tip would be, they're all going to be probably health related. My first tip
Good.
is
Yeah.
sleep. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. I think, at least here in the US, sleep is very underrated. And it is so powerful. So the recommendation is for adults to get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep every night. And lots of people aren't getting that. And so when you aren't getting good sleep, it's affecting your hormones, it's affecting your hunger, it affects your food choices, it affects your ability to be a role model, honestly, a role model for your kids. So there's so much in our culture that prevents us from getting sleep. People bring their work home. People are scrolling on social media. There's the movies, Netflix. I mean, there's so many fun things to be doing all the time, but that's encroaching on our sleep. So really trying to dial in and focus on your sleep. That would be my first tip. My second tip, I'm 55. So as a woman who's, above 40, I wish I had started more when I was 40, but would be exercise on purpose. And I love the title of your podcast, Life on Purpose, or Living on Purpose, Life on Purpose.
Life on Purpose.
Yeah, Life on Purpose. I mean, that's so, I just love that. That's so the message is why we're doing things. We're doing it on purpose. So women can exercise, especially over 40, because over 40, we know that we start to lose muscle mass more quickly than when we were younger. And so even walking, or even better, a little bit of strength training, lifting some weights to maintain our muscle mass, which is going to improve your metabolic health. So if you keep your muscles up and keep working on your muscles, maintain your muscle strength. Well, number one, it's great for your bones, but also it improves your metabolic health, because when you do eat things that have sugar in it, your muscles will burn that sugar more efficiently. So it gives you wiggle room that you need, that you probably didn't need before. So sleep, exercise, and my last one, I guess, would be just connection, and connection to yourself, number one, and really having a good, spending time with yourself, and really getting to enjoy spending time with yourself, but also connection to, if you're a mom, to your kid, it can be to anybody, really. But that has been something that has been shown to improve people's health lifespan, the length of their life, and their health span. So the quality of your health is your relationships and your connection. And so, really focusing on staying connected to people in a meaningful way. Because sometimes busy moms, 40, in your 40s, 50s, you had a million things going on, your job, your kids, your spouse, everything is going in many different directions. And you can not meet up with your friends, or you can not stay connected to your friends, or you can lose connection to your kids or your spouse. But understanding that connection is what's going to help you really enjoy your life on, like you said, on purpose. So those are my 3 tips.
Love them. Fantastic. I'm building up a little collection, and if I had to choose 3, I wouldn't be able to do it because I'm getting really great answers. So I love that. That's fantastic. Sheila, you have been amazing. You have got a program that you offer. You have got a free download that you want to share with everyone as well. And you have got a wealth of knowledge that I know that we haven't even touched the surface yet. And I'd love to get you back another time to share more. But where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
The best place is through my website, SheilaCarrollMD.com. I'll give you the link. And my email is on there, so people could just email me.
Super. And you've got a free download that people can download.
Yes, it's called How to Make Parenting Around Food Feel Less Hard. And we kind of talked a little bit about it. And it just, I think I hope it's helpful for people to understand why it feels hard, but also, okay, how can I parent on purpose around food? And that's what this handout helps people with.
Super. I will put all those links in the show notes so people can get hold of those. But thank you for being here. It's been wonderful having you here. You have given us so much insight into how to make better choices with our health. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline. Thanks for having me.
And thanks everyone for watching. See you soon. Bye.